All right, so I was watching this segment with Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith, and they were discussing the disappointing performances by the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Portland Trailblazers in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. And this comes to no surprise. To anybody that pays attention to the game of basketball and watch NBA basketball, this is no surprise. Russell Westbrook is probably one of the most exciting basketball players to watch. On any day of the month, during the regular season, he's one of the most exciting players to watch. But when it comes time for playoff time, and if you're a Thunder fan, when it comes time to watch your team in the playoffs, you expect this kind of shit from Russell Westbrook. And people keep talking about how great this guy is and, how phenomenal of a basketball player he is, but he has yet to show that he has the ability to lead his team through a playoff series. And all that superhero shit that he does where he's flying up and down the court, jumping over everybody and all this other shit and taking the game into his hands, all that's fine when you need like 45, maybe 50 wins in the regular season. But it don't mean anything if you need wins in the playoffs. And I was talking to somebody and they like to bring up stats a lot, when we discuss the greatness of some of these players. And my go-to argument is always, how is his stats translating into championship wins or playoff success? And if it doesn't, what does it matter? Because you play any game to win titles. That's the barometer. That was always the barometer of greatness, is titles. It's like when you go to college and, you study your ass off. You spend years in fucking college stacking up the titles because it makes you look more qualified for whatever position you're going out for. You play this game to win titles. Titles is what's important, not stat padding. And that's what Russell Westbrook is. I mean, he's like a stat padder on crack. I mean, because this dude is so athletic. It's kind of hard to deny him sometimes. But I'm going to let them talk.
And tonight, the loss, I'm going to take full responsibility of tonight because the way I played was unacceptable, and I'm going to be better. So I'm not worried one bit. My job is to make sure I continue to come out and, will and lead our guys and make sure we have a chance to win the game.
Are you, though? Are you going to be better? Because Russell Westbrook has yet to show any growth in his game. I mean, some people say, well, he's shooting less, he's passing more, his numbers aren't as overwhelming as they were the year before. Listen, if you're taking 35 to 40 shots a game, which is a crazy amount for one player, and you knock that down to about 30 to 35 shots, and 30 to 35 shots a game still is a lot of shots. And I'm not saying those are his numbers when it comes to shooting the ball, but I'm giving you an example of, just because your numbers were crazy one year and you bring them down a little bit the next year, doesn't mean that you're playing better team ball. It just means you're shooting less. That's it. But you're still shooting way more than anybody else on the floor. And there's a lot of shots that I watch. When I watch the Thunder play, there's a lot of shots that I see Russell Westbrook take that I'm like, why? Just move the ball a little bit. It seems like once it enters his space, the ball is just dead. That's it. I mean, when you play with a player like that, it doesn't matter if it's a Russell Westbrook, LeBron James. When you play with a player where if I either don't make this shot or if I pass them the ball, the chances of me getting it back are slim. This is why a lot of these players don't play well, like with LeBron, man, when he was in Cleveland. This is why they don't play well. It's because you're not afforded enough opportunities to succeed. Just because he passes you the ball doesn't mean that he's putting you in a position to win. If you don't make a shot And LeBron is one of those guys, if you don't make a shot, the chances of you getting the ball anytime soon is slim.
I want a backstage tour of Russell Westbrook's closet, by the way. Stephen A., what's at stake for Russ?
His reputation. His reputation from the standpoint that I think that it's time that we start having a discussion about Russell Westbrook in this context. When Kevin Durant departed, I jumped to Russell Westbrook's defense because of how Kevin Durant handled things in terms of not...
And real quick, man, this is only going to take a few seconds, but this is the world we live in nowadays where people just are given reputations they're not really earning. You don't really treat people according to how they operate. You treat people based on what you believe that they deserve to be treated. You know, Russell Westbrook never in his career has ever earned the acclaim that this dude has got. The only reason, and Stephen A. just said it, the only reason why people had this dude back, supported him as much as they did, was because Kevin Durant was looked at as a snake for just leaving. Which, he's a grown-ass man. I don't see why anybody would have a problem with him deciding that he just wants to go. I mean, I get it. If they were friends and he didn't tell him anything, fine. That's Russell Westbrook's gripe with Kevin Durant. But it seems like everybody else takes on the emotions and the feelings of other people and try to take them on as their own. Which is stupid. That's fucking retarded. You don't even know these people.
Communicate with him, you know what I'm saying? He found out like everybody else found out. That kind of thing or what have you. But universally, you circulated around the NBA, and what they said was Kevin Durant knew he could win with Russell Westbrook. Now, we look at Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is a superstar talent. He's the most athletic point guard any of us have ever seen. His athleticism is off the chart. I think he's unstoppable as an offensive player one-on-one. You can't guard him or anything like that. But he's been awful shooting the three-pointer all year. The team collectively isn't the greatest three-point shooting team in the world. I don't know why they sitting up here and they launching 28 three-pointers. If you can't shoot them, what you taking so damn many for? You shot 17%, 18% for three-point range.
And real quick, man, I say the same thing about teams that just die from the three-point line. When you have a team like a Golden State or a Houston Rockets team that shoot the three ball at such a high clip, you either have to learn how to do that to some degree to keep you in these games, or you'll get steamrolled. And I'm not taking anything away from the Houston Rockets, but when I hear people talk about, well, you know, James Harden put up 36 points and all this other stuff, and, you know, the way James Harden plays the game, plus the way he shoots the ball, it's kind of hard to defend against it, especially if he's knocking them down. He's a great shot maker, but it's hard to, especially with his dribble moves and how I watched a video of this referee who was commentating on James Harden's dribble patterns and how he's not traveling when he does things like that, even though to the blind eye it looks like he's traveling. But you know, a ref came out and said that he wasn't. I'm not gonna say the ref is wrong. I'm not gonna say the ref is right. I don't know, but to me it looks like he travels. But they say that he does it in a way where the process when you start to travel doesn't start for like a half second or a second after his first step. Like a half second after his first, after that first initial step back, he still holds the ball in a certain way that it doesn't count as a step. It still counts as a part of the dribble move. And then when he takes another 2 steps back, that's when you start to count for the travel, which is funny, but yeah, it's hard to stop these guys. And a lot of these teams feel lost because they don't have the personnel to shoot the way they do. They don't have the personnel to be able to stack on the offensive numbers. That's why you either have to learn an extreme amount of defense. Like, you either have to play an extreme amount of defense, and that seems to be the only way to beat Golden State, is by playing a level of physicality on defense that won't get you calls, but imposes your will on them. Because Golden State is a finesse team. There's nothing physical about them. So if you can impose some kind of physicality on them and force them off their square, you can beat them. And just going off of what happened with the Los Angeles Clippers and the Cleveland Cavaliers and the way Boston plays them, physicality is the best way to beat this team.
Last night, 5 of 28. That's what you put in the docket. I'm looking at a Russell Westbrook, and I'm saying to myself, excuse me, the superstar that you are, since Kevin Durant left, you went out in the first round that year, didn't have any help. Last year you had Paul George, you still went out in the first round against Utah. This year you're going up against Damian Lillard, and Damian Lillard gave it to him last night. Let's be clear about that. Him and CJ McCollum put on a show. There's no question about that. But do I believe Russell Westbrook will come back from this? Damn right I do. Just like he said when Ricky Rubio got the best of him in one game. He said, I'll be back, handle this business, even though Damian Lillard is no Ricky Rubio, and Ricky Rubio is no Damian Lillard. Having said all of that, it comes a point in time where we're talking about this former league MVP. We're talking about the greatness of this individual. We're talking about the fiery personality. We're talking about the 1,000% effort max. We're talking about all of these things. And why are we talking about it? Because of what we see in the regular season. When producing the postseason in the past, it's when he's had help. Not to say that he doesn't have help now because Paul George showed up last night. But in the end, Russell Westbrook is the face of this franchise now and has been since Kevin Durant has left. And all we have to show for it is first round exits. That has to change. Otherwise, our narrative about Russell Westbrook is going to have to change.
Here's what's at stake for Westbrook. A lot. Is he an elite point guard? You say, well, that's ridiculous, but how do you define that? That's true. Or is he top 5? I think it's tough to argue he's not, but is he top 3? Like, Damian Lillard is here playing to take his place, in the upper echelon, right? Because you got Steph and you got Harden. No one's going to dispute that. Mm-hmm. Am I talking low enough? I'm trying to. And so those two.
I'm not talking about you talking low. I'm talking about I can't raise my voice.
All right,
so be kind to me.
I get you. Kyrie not only puts the stats up, but he's won a championship. He's done it. Mm-hmm. You say, well, he's playing with LeBron. Well, Westbrook was playing with KD and Ibaka and Harden. I know they were babies, but still, that's a collection of talent. And then with the year that they went to Oracle and lost in 7 games to the Warriors, LeBron's crew with Kyrie came in there and beat him in 7 games. And Kyrie gave it to Steph on that last shot. So there's that, right? There's the fact that Damian Lillard is saying, I'm coming. I'm trying to, and I'm coming for your spot, Russ, among the elite. Another thing is that Russell Westbrook, you understand how many triple-doubles in the history of basketball?
And before Max Kellerman goes down this road where he starts talking about Oscar Robertson again, Russell Westbrook, his style of play, if you just look at the numbers, this dude might be the second best point guard in the NBA. If you're just looking at the numbers. But if you watch the way he plays and how he impacts his team late in games and those must-win situations, this dude is not even a top 5 point guard in the NBA. He's just not. And to compare Kyrie to him, look, Kyrie, people at an exhausting level, people likes to bring up LeBron whenever they start talking about Kyrie Irving. But Kyrie Irving was crucial for Cleveland to beat Golden State. I mean, this dude's offensive ability to being able to put the ball in the basket was so important to that team. And if you want to talk real shit, the first year LeBron played with Kyrie and Kyrie got hurt in the first game of the NBA Finals, and I believe they won that game. I believe Cleveland won the first game when Kyrie went out. I think it went to overtime. I might be wrong, but I believe they won that game. After that, it just was a completely different series. It was a completely different series. And then the next year when Kyrie was healthy, and also Kevin Love was healthy, but when Kyrie was healthy, Kyrie, he did work like he normally does, and which I consider Kyrie to be a very big game player. And he went to work, and they won that series. I mean, they won under some suspect circumstances, but they won. And then the next year they lost because Kevin Durant was on Golden State Warriors, and there was just no way you were going to beat that team. And then Kyrie left, and ever since then, man, it seemed like LeBron has had a hard time. And I believe if Kyrie was playing for Boston last year in the playoffs, and this is just my opinion, I believe if Kyrie was playing for Boston, Boston would have beat Cleveland probably in 5 or 6 games. Because they already beat Giannis and that fully healthy Milwaukee Bucks team in the first round of 7. They already beat the shit out of the 2 young superstars in Philadelphia, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, in 5 games. They completely made them look like jokes, like real fucking jokes. They made them look like jokes, and then they lost in 7 games to LeBron because they couldn't get the job done down a stretch. Now, if Kyrie was, I just honestly believe the team would have been so much better if Kyrie was out there on that floor. But now Max is going to start bringing up Oscar Robertson, trying to, I guess, validate Russell Westbrook's play, his play style, and his greatness by comparing him to one of the greatest guards that the NBA has ever seen. And there's 2 different eras, man. Oscar Robertson, the time that he played is different than now.
Well, ever been average over the course of the season before Westbrook? You know how many in a row? 1 in a row. 1 in a row was the record.
Yeah.
Because there's only been one by Oscar Robertson.
Yeah.
And we had people on the show yesterday, I forgot who was it, bro. Was it Jalen or maybe Mike Greeny, who said that to this day, I think it's Greeny's dad, who'll tell him, to this day, you better not say Magic's better than Oscar Robertson. That's the kind of impression the Big O left on people. 1 average of triple-double. Westbrook just did it 3 times in a row. 3 times in a row. He has a reputation of a stat stuffer. Not a winner, a stat stuffer. Now, I want to say something about this. That's ridiculous. Russell Westbrook stuffs the stats not because he's looking for those statistics. It's that the stats are a reflection of the fact that he's everywhere. He gets points, rebounds, assists because he's all over the court. Good for him. That's an important call.
No, that's my...
If his stats are the end result of his high octane play, because that's basically what you're saying. If that's the case, then how come when Carmelo Anthony was going up for a rebound, you just see Russell Westbrook and his tiny ass boxing this dude out for the fucking rebound? If his stats are not orchestrated, but they're just a result of how he plays, how come you see time after time he'll have cooked assist, or he'll pass the ball to an open player, and if that player passes the ball, you will just see a fucking furious Russell Westbrook.
Ring doorbell. Sorry about that. The ring thing is great though. You spy on your house when you're not there.
So, not a winner, a stat stuffer. Right now, as I said, stat stuffer is BS. He's not that. He stuffs the stats because it's a reflection of his effort and his play. But there is this thought out there: can you win with this guy? Now, I think you can. I think all the armchair psychology and the hand wringing about Westbrook is really boils down to he doesn't shoot it well enough. If he shot it well enough, we would come.
Russell Westbrook, the only way this dude to win a title is if he's not the best player on the team and he's surrounded by really great players that are able to shut out his personality, who have dominant personalities but in a positive way, who's able to shut out his personality on the court and be able to essentially put him in his place. Like, dude, you're the point guard. Your job is to pass, shoot when you're open, but facilitate. And this is the problem with this positionless basketball, is that everybody wants to do everything. You got centers out here that wants to jack up 3-point shots like they're shooting guards. You got point guards that just want to, spot up 15 feet behind the 3-point line, shooting fucking deep range threes. You got shooting guards who want to be point guards, small forwards, shooting guards, everything on the goddamn floor. But you don't really have special, like, you don't have, what do you call it? position-based specialists anymore. Where back in the, like, not even that long ago, point guards were the facilitators, shooting guards were the volume scorers. They were the point guys. Small forwards were usually like the either 3-and-D guys, but mainly their focus were, defensively. Power forwards, they're like the tweeners. They're like oversized small forwards and undersized centers. And then the centers, they're the rim protectors. Now with the power forward position, it varies, man, because there were so many different styles of power forward. You'll have a Kevin Durant who was a defensive guy. You'll have a Dirk Nowitzki who was a sharpshooter. You have a Rasheed Wallace who was just one of those guys whose impact on the floor, offensively and defensively, wasn't at a Hall of Fame level either, but they were great enough that it significantly impacted the team. And you had different styles of play. Now everybody wants to be 3-point shooter ball handlers. Like whenever I watch a New Orleans game, or if I play 2K and I look at I'll play against New Orleans. If Anthony Davis is on the floor, one of the first things they always bring up is, well, this dude used to be a point guard in high school before he got his growth spurt. So you want everybody to be a fucking you want everybody to basically be a point guard who can shoot the ball, but also if you have size, you should be able to defend and rebound. Positionless basketball is a problem because everybody is just horning in on everybody else's territory. Because now you can just start 2 point guards, 1 point guard that can shoot and 1 point guard that can pass, maybe defend. A lot of times you'll see two power forwards out there. You'll see a small forward at the power forward position. Positionless basketball, man. It's like cancer, man.
I'm down with all this other stuff.
Right.
But even I've been on here saying Westbrook pulls too hard in the moment of truth, right? He needs to let go a little bit, ease up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's on the line. Is he a stat stuffer or a winner? Well, as unfair as that may be.
Here's the thing about it. We believe he's a superstar talent, and nothing's taken away from it. But to whom much is given, much is required. And you understand? And we know about the responsibility. The reality is that we have to judge him the way we would judge anybody else. Lauded and praised as much as he's lauded and praised for what he's accomplished. At some point in time, we're sitting up here. James Harden is a league MVP who went to the Western Conference Finals. Game 7 came within 48 minutes of going to the finals. Lost to a team that ultimately has won 3 of the last 4 championships with the greatest shooting backcourt and the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. And what did we say about James Harden? What you gonna do in the postseason? What you gonna be doing in the postseason? We're looking at Kevin Durant, and we're talking about him ultimately moving on from Golden State. And being the face of a franchise. Okay, well, what you gonna do when it's yours? We look at LeBron James, who went to 8 straight NBA Finals, won 3 championships, was a league MVP 4 times, and we ask questions about him. What you gonna do? How can we absolve Russell?
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. The only time he started asking questions about LeBron James was when LeBron was in danger of not making the playoffs. That was the only time people started questioning his ability to lead teams, was when they missed the playoffs this year. But before he even got to the Lakers, I think the Lakers won 35 games last year, something like that, like 37 or something. And people just assumed that they were going to be this 50-win team, probably second or third in the West, and a Western Conference final no less than a Western Conference Finals appearance. This was going into the season because I'm thinking like, well, how does everybody know what this fucking dude is going to do? He's never played for this team. He's never played with these players. He's never been in the West before. So that's bullshit, man. And this is going back to what Stephen A. said. Much is given, much is required. You don't even need to fucking earn any of what you're given. All the acclaim that you're given, if people love you enough, they'll just give it to you. You don't have to earn the shit. You don't have to earn nothing. They'll just give it to you if they love you enough. And this is why a lot of this bullshit, the problem is public opinion. That's the problem, man, because a majority of the public opinion loves a certain thing, so then it's just that. You know, like a majority of the public love LeBron James and they think that he's the greatest thing since fucking sliced bread. And because people believe this, now it's just out there and that's just what it is. Even though this dude at no point in his career, individually, athletically, he's a great player. But he has never dominated during his time. And when I mean dominate, I mean winning titles. Jordan dominated the 90s. Magic and Bird and Isaiah Thomas dominated the 80s. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar dominated when he was playing fucking Bill Russell in the Celtics. Dominated the 60s. Nobody really dominated the 70s. That's why I'm saying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was probably the closest, but nobody really dominated the 70s because it was a mess. But the 60s Celtics, I believe the 50s were like the Lakers or the Warriors, and one or the other. But LeBron has never really dominated. Kobe dominated the 2000s. Him and AI. And now in the 2010s, I mean, it's being run by the Golden State Warriors. I mean, LeBron had his little stint where he was unbeatable. His couple years, but his few years in Miami. And shit, that wasn't even that unbeatable, man, because the series that he lost were fucking like head scratchers. Like, this is supposed to be the best player in the world, and you're paired up with two other superstars, and you can't even beat a team that has one superstar and a bunch of has-beens on their team. And then your first championship comes from being a young up-and-coming team. See, people want to say, that team had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, but they were young. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Sometimes you can be too successful too soon. And they were too successful. I'm not going to say too successful. They were very successful a little bit too soon before their time, before they were ready for it. And it happens like that. And LeBron capitalized off that. And that was his first title win. And his second title win came off of what some might call one of the biggest blunders in NBA playoff history, when Greg Popovich took out Tim Duncan in the final seconds of the game, which you didn't have a rebounder in there, a guy that can go out there and get you the rebound. And it kind of gave Miami life. And then they wound up getting beaten in Game 7, I believe. But then what happened in the very next year? Kawhi Leonard comes into his own. You still got the vets there, and they beat this shit out of them. And I saw this video where they were talking about how San Antonio turned off the air conditioning and all this other stuff. Listen, teams do shit like that, and I don't really have a problem with it. Any way to give yourself an advantage, as long as you're not blatantly trying to sabotage the other team. If you're doing little things like turning the heat up or turning the air down, it's the job of the other team to manage that situation. And there have been plenty of players who play under great duress and still come out victorious. So I really don't want to hear that, but LeBron wasn't even that dominant, but we attached to him one of the greatest players ever. I don't consider LeBron to be one of the greatest players ever. I don't even know if I would have LeBron in my top 10 of players that I would take in like an all-time draft. I don't think he would be in my top 10 on my top 10 draft board. There are so many other players that I would take over him. And one of those things that contributes to that is leadership ability. I believe he doesn't have the leadership ability to be considered one of the greatest players of all time. Now, he's one of the all-time talents, just like Russell Westbrook is. That doesn't make him the greatest player ever. And it shouldn't. All right, I'm going to end it here, man, because I've been talking for a while. But Russell Westbrook needs to figure this shit out, man, because this dude, he's been in the league for 10 years. You've been in the league for 19 years, and you still can't find a way to get it done? At some point, it's just too late. It's just too late for certain players. Not everybody can be a John Elway who spent his entire career trying to get over the hump, couldn't do it. The moment he gets a running back that can rush for 2,000 yards in a season, this dude pulls off 2 championships in the twilight of his career. Not everybody can have an ending like that. So, it is whatever.